Yo, what is up, guys? Still an aka Christian Deputy, and this is going to be part 2 of the Week 0 or post-draft power rankings. I did want to just go ahead and give thoughts on how everybody's team could be improved, either slightly or majorly. So, with that, I'll go ahead and get started with my 16th place team, who is the Scumpunk, coached by Punk Turtle. So this team has 4 Pokemon weak to Fairy, 4 Pokemon weak to Fighting, no Fairy resist outside of the Toxtricity, no Steel type, Stealth Rockers being something like Dreadnought and Torterra, who's pretty awkward to bring. Does have, I guess you could say, nice hazard removal, at least, with Noivern and Zatu's Defog, as well as Turtonators, Blastoise, and what was it? Morpiko's Rapid Spin. And then Zatu can also Magic Bounce stuff away. But, I mean, aside from that, I don't really see anything this team can do. Like maybe a random Scrafty setup mid-game, or like Mikyu setup or something could catch the opponent off guard, or like a Turtonator Shell Smash. But aside from that, I just feel like they'll have to catch their opponent off guard with like weird sets or like bad plays that just work out randomly. The team could use a lot of improvement. Definitely something like a Steel type will help a lot, and getting better Stealth Rockers, better Hazard. So, yeah, that's gonna be that for that team. I don't really have a lot to say about it, just that it needs a lot of major improvement if it looks to get into playoffs. At 15th, I have the Wano Kuni Ronins, coached by Baker Turtle. This team, I mean, it's pretty slow outside of like Cinderace and like Hitmonlee outside of terrain. Or inside terrain, not outside, because it's like base 87 outside of terrain. For hazards, if I'm looking correctly here, it's only Skarmory and Armaldo who get Stealth Rocks, but Cinderace is neat in the fact that it has Court Change, so it serves as a somewhat Magic Bounce, so you can just run like heavy duty boots and put all the hazards on his side onto his opponents if they do try to hazard stack him. He did pick Tapu Lele and then like nothing to really abuse the terrain with it. He did get the Hitmonlee pick, which can use like a Psychic Seed Unburden set to be faster than things. But aside from that, Tapu Lele is going to be the only thing that's going to be like spamming Psychic type attacks under that terrain. Maybe even something like Cinderace can click Zen Headbutt. I do like that they picked a fast U-turner in Cinderace and then a slow Volt Switch user in Ampharos or Mega Ampharos, so that they could bring in like the threat. Well, the one threat, I don't really see anything else being a big threat aside from like Galarian, Darmanitan, and then like Tapu Lele. This team feels really passive, and then not having access to a good Stealth Rocker outside of like Skarmory, I think is going to hinder this team a lot. I do like that they have the double Rapid Spin option with Hitmonlee and Armaldo, and then like the one Defog with Skarmory. But I feel if you're going to pick a double Rapid Spin, you could definitely invest in more hazard play like Spikes, Toxic Spikes, and like Sticky Web, especially since this team is really slow. A Sticky Web user would be really nice. At 14th, I have the Bastionado Arcanites. They do have something like the core of Mega Sizzler, Melodic, and then like the Fire and the Grass type in Arcanine and Superior, so those will cover the Mega Sizzler really well. But again, this is another team where it's like, oh, okay, your Stealth Rocker is regular Golem, and then your Toxic Spike setter is Coughing. So hazard play is going to be really awkward for them. And then they're also somewhat slow outside of like Alakazam, Raichu, and Superior. They do have better speed tiers than the previous team I talked about, so I did put them a little higher. And they do have options, a lot of options to get rid of hazards in Scizor, Conkeldurr. Oh, well, actually, they have about the same amount, but it's all just defog, right? So they could definitely use something like a Rapid Spin user. They do have the Mega Scizor and Magneton pick, but as we talked about in the previous video with the Ash Greninja Magnezone user, most teams are going to want to bring that Shed Shell so that they aren't trapped by Magneton. So maybe, if you're able to knock off with Scizor first and then trap something, that'll be really useful. And then Conkeldurr and having Porygon 2 is a really nice option for like Trick Room, since you do have a few slower options like that Conkeldurr and the Golem, who could be really nice under Trick Room. But they also don't really have a Dark Resist, although they're not extremely weak to it. Like their only weakness is the Alakazam, and then their only resist is something like Conkeldurr, although Conkeldurr is pretty fat, so it can appreciate taking those like Dark Pulses, but probably not a lot of times. At 13th, I have the Philadelphia Flygons. So just looking at this team, you have something like Vanillux, Rillaboom, Alolan Sandslash, Registeel, and then like Kartana, right? So your team is very fire weak. And then they do somewhat check that with a Salamence, who can be pretty bulky, and then a Quagsire, but I'm not really a big fan of Quagsire as a bulky water or ground, as its stats are very poor, and it also lacks access to Stealth Rock. Nice, since it also can't Rapid Spin. And then even something like Clefairy, Registeel can also set up those rocks so that they're able to chip things slowly with like a Rillaboom U-turn, Sharpedo Flip Turn, things like that. And then like go in and break teams with the Hoopon Bound pick, or like Kartana, who could be like Swords Dance, and then like Dragon Dance Salamence or something like that. So this team's nice, aside from that very, very weak to fire type aspect to it. At 12th, I have the just the Glaciers is what they decided to name themselves, coached by Slash. So this is the other coach that went ahead and picked Ash Greninja, and they just picked a bunch of like something like the Ferrothorn and the Heatran, Togekiss even, Rotom Wash. I think he just went with, okay, I'm going to pick Ash Greninja and then pick a bunch of his checks just so people can't have it. And then, so for hazards, his team is really nice with hazards. I just wish, again, that with all these teams that are choosing like a bunch of hazard mon options, a Rapid Spin user would be really good. They have Togekiss, Rotom Wash, and Altaria, and those all only defog. And then like Galarian Mr. Mime is their Rapid Spin user, so that could be really awkward to bring if you're planning to stack all the spikes and like Toxic Spikes and even Stealth Rock. But yeah, I mean, this team I think relies on a lot on just pure offense, like wearing things down for Greninja, and then Greninja having to put the whole team on its back. Jagalgi, Pangoro, Ductrio, those could be pretty strong, especially Ductrio if you could get it under sand, but that's going to be, again, really awkward since he didn't pick a sand setter, so it's going to have to run like Sandstorm for itself. And then this team is also really weak to a fighting type, like Greninja, Heatran, Ferrothorn, Crocodile, Pangoro, Duck Trio, Alolan Duck Trio at that. Like, those are all weak to fighting. And although he does have something like Togekiss and Dragalge, Altaria, they don't really appreciate a Stone Edge or like an Earthquake from the Dragalge. So I think that fighting type weakness has to get patched up. And definitely picking a better Rapid Spin user would help them a lot. At 11th, I did go ahead and put the Toxic Tyrantrums, coached by JMZ. So, I mean, this team on paper just looks very threatening, right? They went ahead and picked something like Victini, Zygarde, and then Mega Tyranitar. So those are going to be really threatening. And then they pick like Zapdos that can Volt Switch, Cobalion that can Volt Switch into those big threats, and even Victini can also click U-turn into them. Tapu Fini is really nice too, since it also gets Defog, so Zapdos doesn't have to be bringing Defog every week, or vice versa. Tapu Fini can bring like 4 attacks or something, or like Calm Mind 3 attacks, and then Zapdos can be the defogger for the week. And then he does pick Roserade later, so that does give them an option for spikes even, and toxic spikes. And then with Mega Tyranitar and Cobalion, they have that Stealth Rock option covered. And then they do get the Stoutland, like a 8th pick, so that it is able to abuse the sand with the Sand Rush. And then like the last 3 picks are kind of awkward. It's like Frogadier, Reboot, and Haunter. So I mean, with 6 points you kind of have to pick like those non-fully evolved Pokemon. And I think this team would have really appreciated something with Sticky Web, and then like of course a Rapid Spin user, so that you don't have to get rid of all the hazards you could potentially set up against your opponent. At 10th, I had the Morail Mantis, coached by Brian. So here I just went, it's somewhat similar to Edwin's draft from the first group, except he's not playing Terrain Wars with himself. Well, potentially he can with the Galarian Weezing, but I feel having it as a grounded poison option is better than like the Misty Terrain. Of course, it could throw the opponent off guard with the potential of Hawlucha being Misty Seed instead of Electric Seed, since he does have the Koko and, again, as I mentioned, the Galarian Weezing. Then he has Rain with Politoed and Poliwrath, so he picked both of the Frogmons. Then he has a really nice Sticky Web setter in Orbeetle in case he doesn't want to bring Rain or like be extremely fast, or even for something like the Mega Heracross. Mega Heracross getting access to spikes is also really cool. And then with Weezing getting toxic spikes, and Landorus, Marowak getting Stealth Rock, right? That could be really cool to see. Again, this team, just you have like 4 different types of hazards. You would really appreciate something like a Rapid Spin user, just so you don't have to be getting rid of your hazards, right? At 9th, I have the San Francisco Deltas. Now, this team started really strong. They have like Celesteela, Mew, Keldeo, like Nidoqueen, and then like Mega Charizard X. And then like the rest of the picks all just became really poor. I move it up a few spots if, something like Mew and Nidoqueen weren't the only hazard setters. Like, definitely here, since you do have something like Keldeo and Mega Charizard, you do want to be able to, break stuff. So making sure you aren't outsped with like Sticky Web is really cool for the team. And then I feel at the end, the Alolan Grimer pick, yeah, he only had 1 point left, but I feel that could have been spent somewhere else, since you already have a grounded poison type in Nidoqueen, and you already picked your dark type in the Spiritomb. course, Alolan Grammar does get access to knockoff, which Spiritomb does not. But, I mean, Spiritomb just being an overall better Pokemon means you more than likely won't be bringing Alolan Grimer at all, and it's just there to fill the spot, you know, making this a pretty much a 10-point team or 10 Mon team instead of 11. Again, this team appreciates having a Rapid Spin user, but I do believe Mew can learn that since it can learn any move in the game. And then Keldeo having Flip Turn to bring like Mega Charizard in against dragons that want to switch into it, or like grass types, and then even Snorlax to Pursuit Trap ghost types could be really neat for the Mew so that it can be free to do whatever it wants for the game. At 8th, I have the Orlando Magic Bouncers. So their team is just like a really strong offense. Like it's really strong, really fast. Something like Zeraora, and then like Mega Absol, Virizion even can be a little threatening. Chandelure, Komodo, Primarina, Nidoking, and Metagross. Those are really strong, really threatening. And then they do have a lot of options for Stealth Rock, you know, again, naming the Komodo, Metagross, Nidoking, and the Gligar. And then even something like Masquerain gives him access to Sticky Web, so that he is able to outspeed some of the threats to like Nidoking, even like Komodo, Metagross, and Primarina, right? It could be really nice to outspeed those like base 100 Pokemon, so that he's able to break holes a lot easier. But again, I think if their game plan doesn't go along as they wanted to, it won't be having too much success. But the opposite is also true, where if their game plan does go as they wanted to go, you know, if they have the momentum for the entire match, then they could definitely just steal away games with that really strong offense. At 7th, I have the Los Angeles Pardos. So they do have a really nice core of Dragapult, Jirachi, and Mandoblast. They all pretty much cover their weaknesses really well, aside from like the electric, right? Like Dragapult, Dragapult resists electric, and then they also have something like Amoonguss. So yeah, Amoonguss being a really nice pivot for teams, especially this one where you just go into it, threaten something with a spore, and then get out and bring in something like the Dragapult or even like Darmanitan and just start slamming through things. The Araquanid pick is really nice, especially to support the Darmanitan, so that is able to be faster than other threats on the enemy team. Then having two really nice options to Rapid Spin in Hitmontop and Cryogonal is really nice. The only thing I don't like about the team is that Jirachi is the only Stealth Rock user, and then Araquanid is the sole Sticky Web user, although you almost never want to be drafting more than one Sticky Web user, since most Sticky Web users are bug types, and bug types aren't the best type in the game by a margin. So yeah, I mean, this team's really solid. I don't have much else to say. Maybe get another Stealth Rock setter or two, or like something with spikes, so that you could abuse that double Rapid Spin on your team. At 6th, I have the Manx Myostics, coached by the Model Citizen. They drafted a Megalopony and Jolteon as the the Jacksonville Jolteons from the first group. So being able to U-turn and Volt Switch out is really nice, especially when you can set Stealth Rock with like Garchomp and Spikes with Colossal, while Colossal also has Rapid Spin. And then having access to Defog and Moltres and like Scyther, weirdly enough, could be really useful too. And then having the grounded poison type in Vileplume, as well as that being their grass type, is really nice. I do feel they could be a bit weak to a ground type, since both of his flying types are 4 times weak to rock, which most ground types do get coverage for, and then Vileplume not being resistant to ground since it is half poison could be a threat. And I really feel Vaporeon could have been a different bulky water, as you already have Sylveon and Jolteon, and those can be clerics too. But I mean, I guess if you want to bring like Choice Spec Sylveon every week and bring like Wish Protect Vaporeon instead, that could be really nice for it too. But I think that's like the only thing I would change. At 5th, I have the Shamrock Snowrace, coached by Duffy. So I mean, they picked a lot of hazards here. They have access to Stealth Rock and Bronzong. Diggersby and Greninja have access to Spikes, and then again Greninja and Tentacruel with access to Toxic Spikes. And finally, Galvantula with access to Sticky Web. This is really nice, paired with a Rapid Spin user like the Tentacruel, who again can set up those Toxic Spikes by itself too. So he doesn't have to get rid of his own hazards. But I do feel, again, only having Altaria to defog and Tentacruel to Rapid Spin is going to lock them into those roles for most weeks. But definitely, if everything is able to go their way, this team is really threatening, especially with like Single Strike, Urshifu, Incineroar, Diggersby, Greninja, and even like Silvally and Mega Altaria can be really threatening. So yeah, this team just, if they bring like a 6 of Urshifu, Mega Altaria, like Tentacruel, Galvantula, Bronzong, and like Silvally, or like Filler as the last Pokemon, can offer a lot of offense, that could be really hard to deal with, especially with all the coverage that those Pokemon all get. At 4th, I have the Chicago Torros. So this is, I think, between them and the previous team, they could be like interchanged easily. Like this team could be the 5th place team, and then the Snowverse could be the 4th place team. They're really strong. The edge I do have with the Chicago Torros is that they have better options for Stealth Rock, I would say. You know, I mean, like Clefable, Excadrill, and Tyranitar are some of the best Stealth Rock setters in the game. And then even like having Scumpunk, Noctowl to defog, as well as Excadrill to Rapid Spin, could be really cool. And then having something like Slowking in the draft is really nice. I mean, I drafted Slowbro because it checks physical Pokemon better, and then Slowking checks the special Pokemon better. But they essentially serve the same role. They just come in, sponge a hit, click teleport, and bring something else in that is either faster or has a better type matchup, so that they're able to threaten the opponent out. And then mainly the issue here is that a strong ground type can be threatening. I mean, they do have the Electros, right, with Levitate, the Gourgeist to resist, and like the Noctowl who's immune. But, and then like, I mean, if he didn't have Excadrill, like Excadrill would be the best thing to beat him. But, you know, something that could bring like Smackdown and have coverage for that grass type could be really threatening. They do also have a Sand mode, again, as I mentioned, Excadrill and Tyranitar being some really strong Pokemon. You know, so if they do want to bring that Sand mode, they do have something like Kyurem, who's able to pressure those grass and water types for Excadrill and Tyranitar, since Kyurem did recently acquire the move Freeze Dry. And then having Houndoom as a teleport option for Slowking, for like steel types that want to come in against it, and grass types, and even for like electric types, Slowking can just teleport into, again, Excadrill, who's a really big threat to a lot of teams. At third, I have the Kokomo Komos. The Alolan Golem as the last pick is really nice, especially since something like Mega Gardevoir doesn't really want to have to be taking on steel types and run like Focus Blast and Mystical Fire. You want to just spam your Psychic, your Fairy, so that you're able to just break walls to the teams. I have really nice hazard setters in Infernape, Seismitoad, Cradily, and the Alolan Golem that was mentioned for Stealth Rock, as well as Vikavolt for that Sticky Web. So again, like most teams that draft like a lot of hazards, well, this one only has 2, right? But you don't want to have to be defogging your Sticky Web away, so maybe I would invest in a Rapid Spin user. Something like Flygon really doesn't fit here, as you already have your offensive dragon and you already have Seismitoad, who can be both a bulky and an offensive ground if it wants to. So yeah, maybe something like Flygon can be a decent Rapid Spin user, and then this team would be a lot better than it already is. Of course, it's already one of the top 3 teams. Second place, I feel second and first can be easily interchanged as well. Like, the teams are really nice, really powerful, and have like little to no flaws. So here at second place, I have the LA Lapras, coached by Jeremy. So again, as I mentioned, this is easily contender for playoffs or even like first place in the rankings. But I think my only issue with it was that Mamoswine and Pinsir are the only hazard setters in Stealth Rock. Like, definitely could have invested in some more options like Toxic Spikes or even Spikes, but they do have hazard removal options for that Mega Pinsir, since it does hate having a face-off against Stealth Rock. So they do have the Latios, Florges, and the Blastoise, who can, well, the former 2 can defog, and then the latter can Rapid Spin to get the Stealth Rock out of the field, so that the Pinsir isn't immediately taking 50% every turn it comes in if Stealth Rock are in and it is Mega Evolved. But yeah, definitely some nice speed tiers in like Latios, Alolan Persian, Mega Pinsir, and like Typhlosion being Base Lander is really neat, as well as Shaman. But they also have really strong threats, and again, Latios, Mamoswine, Mega Pinsir, Xurkitree, and even Melmetal can be very strong and difficult for teams to deal with. So yeah, I mean, this team easily making playoffs. I doubt they aren't. It's a very strong team. And at first, I did go ahead and put the Eterna City Intes, coached by Flip, or Adam, kind of stupid, who did go ahead and join us in the previous video. So they have really fast options, and like Tornadus T, who is arguably one of the better Pokemon in draft. I mean, Latios and Melmetal are pretty powerful too, but I feel Tornadus can be very versatile in every week it comes in. It could be like bulky pivot or offensive pivot. It could even be like bulk up and can knock items off. It could defog with the heavy duty boots and then get out with U-turn. Like, Tornadus T is really nice. Also, having Mega Gallade to just break through teams with that base 165 attack stat is really nice. And then to complement the Tornadus T, he did pick Tangrowth and Slowbro, and 2 more Regenerator Pokemon who can just sponge a hit, get out, and bring something else in for the team, like the Rotom Heat Pick, even something like Jordagon or Golurk, even Drapion could be really difficult to switch in for some teams. And Wigglytuff too, since it does have the competitive ability to raise its special attack if an opponent just forgets about it and brings in like a specially defensive Intimidate Pokemon or something. Do have nice hazards. You know, they have Steelix to get rocks up, Jordagon to get rocks up, Golurk to get rocks up, and then Drapion to get those toxic spikes up. It does have that grounded poison so that you aren't forced to defog the toxic spikes from opposing teams. You know, every week you could just bring in the Drapion and the toxic spikes will be removed from the field. The only thing I do see this team having a little bit of trouble against is like a bulkier style of team, since this team really relies more on like the speed and being able to knock things out before they get hit to get their knockouts. But even, you know, like Gallade getting Sword Stance and like Rotom Heat getting Nasty Plot can help alleviate those issues a bit. And again, first and second place teams are pretty much interchangeable, and they both easily make playoffs. Yeah, so with that, guys, I know this was a quicker run since I did go ahead and do this one by myself. And I mean, I didn't really go too much in depth. It was just more of like my opinion and something they could have picked up or can pick up once the free agency opens up in week 2 to make their teams just slightly stronger than, you know, for some teams just slightly stronger than they already are, and for others, you know, they might need a complete rehaul of their teams. Okay, so with that out of the way, guys, thank you very much for watching. Make sure you leave a like and subscribe if you do enjoy this type of content. And with that, I'll see you next time, guys.